Today's reading is from Ephesians chapter 2, select verses. So then remember that you Gentiles were at that time without Christ, strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now in Christ Jesus, you who once were far off have been brought near. For he is our peace. In his flesh he has made both groups into one and has broken down the dividing wall, that is, the hostility between us. He has abolished the law with its commandments and ordinances, that he might create in himself one new humanity in place of the two, thus making peace, and might reconcile both groups to God in one body, through the cross, thus putting to death that hostility through it. So he came and proclaimed peace to you who were far off, and peace to those who were near. For through him both of us have access in one Spirit to the Father. So then you are no longer strangers and aliens, but you are citizens with the saints and also members of the household of God. In him the whole structure is joined together and grows into a holy temple in the Lord, in whom you also are built together spiritually into a dwelling place for God. These are the inspired words for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
House flipping and home renovation shows are all the rage. HGTV has 16.7 million viewers, and we're just looking for 200 in the sanctuary. But it's a popular topic. With true crime and murder shows, dreamy homes and fixer-upper demolitions are some of the highest rated shows on television. I myself have been wanting to flip a place or two, updating bathrooms and kitchens and tearing down walls to studs and beams is of great interest to me. When other shows, like dating shows and people rehab shows, demonstrate overcoming obstacles and past hurts in the lives of the participants, they too are in the business of demolition. Equipping the people with protective gear, they prepare to smash things and break things to get the anger, rage, and hostility out. And there's something to it. The physical tearing down and breaking things that allows us to live into and embody the process, the work. To do the emotional work that is often relational work. And the writer of the letter to the church at Ephesus has something to say to us about that today. So I have a question for you this morning, and that question is this: does your discipleship matter to you? Does your commitment to Jesus' teachings and to cultivating God's presence in your life matter to you? Shall we attempt to get down to the studs together? I have no sledgehammers for you this morning. But we do have our imaginations and our mind's eyes to do the work. And you're here. So I'm making an assumption that upholding the church with your presence and maybe being fed spiritually matters to you. We repeat our membership vows often to remind ourselves of the commitments that we make to pray and attend to the spiritual disciplines, to being present and attending to the worship of God, to gifts and giving, to service and good works, and to witness. That is our sharing good news of the work of Jesus Christ as it's happening in our midst at Morrow Church. That's one way we can define discipleship. And I know that seeing your friends on Sunday morning matters to you. Even I, after 2 short years, have come to really look forward to seeing you, a community of friends. Some of you have known each other for decades, have been doing this good work together, learning and growing together, dealing with new pastors together. We talked about the relationships formed at the turnover sale, how people from all over the community come together for a month out of the year and look forward to being together and doing the work. Today, we begin a sermon series on discipleship and deepening our commitment to God, as it's described throughout the letter to the church at Ephesus. I know it doesn't sound very light and summery, but as we prepare to return to a full calendar in the fall, take on a new mission in Sierra Leone, and commit to being on a journey to become anti-racist and fully inclusive, I think a time of pondering our discipleship matters and is in order. Discipleship is a process, and it is a practice. It's something that we work on and seek to get better at as we grow and grow up. But it's not easy. From loving our enemies, to praying for those who persecute us, to taking up our crosses and standing with the least of these, the work is not easy, but it's fruitful and worthwhile. My goal and my prayer is that over these weeks, we will find help and guidance for ourselves and for us as a church, as they are given to the church at Ephesus. Guidance this morning that says we must tear down the walls of hostility among us so that we can know peace, so that we can be a dwelling place for God. Not for our own complacency, not for our own agendas, a dwelling place for God. Children who grow up in violent households and or alcoholic ones tell stories about not feeling safe to bring friends home after school or anytime, no sleepovers, mainly because they do not know what they will find once they will get home. And God cannot dwell in a house that is divided or uncertain or unsafe for our children. We want to be a place that gets better and better and better, safer and safer and safer. The letter to the church that we read from today is a later letter written about 70 or 80 AD. It's credited to Paul, but it's different enough that scholars wonder about its authorship. That doesn't matter if it was a Paul or one of Paul's students who wrote it, because it's here, it's beautiful, and it's deep with amazing promises of faith that I believe we want to be realized. You might have some understanding how radical is the idea that the law might be thrown out. Christians today cite the law still because it's biblical, even after these efforts in the Bible to tear down these churchy, human-built walls. Ephesus was a bustling port, rich with diversity, located in present-day Turkey. The early church was comprised of Jewish communities outside Judea, and Peter and Paul were radically extending the promise of the gospel to the Gentile communities. These two groups are identified in chapter 2 as the circumcised and the uncircumcised, and we know that's code for Jews and Gentiles. The ones who have been far off are drawn near, no longer strangers and aliens, but all of us members of the household of God. And there should be no walls of hostility between them. And so it is. But the writer of the letter believes that the law was abolished, with its commandments and ordinances, rules, doctrines, separation, all of it thrown out. All of this in the spirit of reconciliation, bringing us together in peace to be and to become safe space for God. That is very, very powerful. This is no kitchen wall we're talking about. It's no metaphoric wall. The Jewish law demanded separation from the Gentiles. The outer court of the temple was called the court of the Gentiles, where there was an inscription that said that if a Gentile person entered, they could be put to death. The inner court, the holy of holiest places. That was the law. And this is no slight disagreement gone awry among friends, or a family feud that is yet to be reconciled. This is a sea change, a changing of the guard of authority, and a changing of the entire power structure after thousands of years. After thousands of years of self-definition of a people, that was the power of living as a disciple of Christ. Will you claim yours? As progressive Christians, we understand that Jesus, throughout his time on earth, broke the rules of the law over and over and over again by eating with sinners, valuing the women, and touching the bleeding. He also said that where 2 or 3 were gathered, he was most alive and present and at work. All of this to say that we are called to be in relationship. That's what it means to follow him. To build no walls between us, no barriers, no dated rules or judgments, no matter what. No walls built between us. But we do. We build them. We build walls in our lives, in our church relationships. Within our own selves, we build walls. And there is hostility. All of it that needs to be torn down, broken through, so that we together in peace can be a dwelling place for God. The world draws lines, and Christians do too. East, west, left, right, good, bad. Israel, Palestine, Pakistan, Afghanistan, saved and unsaved, us and them. You might know that still when I, as a female clergy person, participate at interfaith gatherings, that I am not welcome on the altar of the Catholic Church. I cannot be served Holy Eucharist. My friend's widow could not receive communion with her children upon the death of her husband. And the priest made that announcement aloud publicly before setting the table. At Morrow, we will live into an open table. No male and female, and no white privileged. And let me take a moment to clarify that walls are not what we know from good psychotherapy and amazing support communities like Al-Anon, good boundaries. Walls are not good boundaries. There's a difference. Walls are created to cut us off, where there is no opening, no hope, no possibility of healing. Good boundaries are set with God's wisdom for self-care, to enter carefully into relationships that are more difficult than others. But enter we can, we may, and trust we must, and try we must, without hostility, because we are called to be in relationship. Joe Dispenza is a New York Times best-selling author, researcher, and international lecturer. He's a doctor of chiropractic whose postdoc work has been in neurology, neuroscience, brain function and chemistry, and cellular biology. His books include Evolve Your Brain, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and Being Supernatural. All of them teach us about the power of our minds and bodies and the connections therein. People like to ask me if I run or exercise or do yoga. And I often answer with a joke that is very true, that I think about those things more than I actually do those things. I think about yoga. Joe Dispenza's research suggests that really thinking about these things has an impact on our brains. In a study of a person who plays piano and a person who thinks about playing the piano, really thinks about it, fingers moving, reading the music, making melody, affects the brain in similar ways as the one who's actually playing the piano. This speaks to the power of what we used to call visualization. So today, right here and right now, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and imagine a wall that you have built. Where is it? Who is on the other side? The person is not the wall. And then in your mind's eye, in your heart and spirit, pick up that hammer and put a dent in that wall. What needs to be said to remove the hostility that is that wallboard? What nails were hammered in the Good Friday of your life? Can we tear that down? Can you start to see the studs and beams appear? That we might know peace, that we might be a dwelling place for God. Amen.